My mom and sister made me reject my dream job to support them, but I later. This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. I never thought my own family would be the ones to sabotage my future, but here I am, sitting in a small apartment an hour away from San Jose, trying to piece together the fragments of what used to be my life. I am Olivia, 22 years old, fresh out of college with a degree in computer science. For years, I worked hard, pushing myself through long nights of studying, part-time jobs, and coding competitions. My father was my biggest supporter. He bought me my first laptop, stayed up late helping me debug my first program, and always told me to chase my dreams. When he passed away 2 years ago in a car accident, everything changed. My mother and my younger sister Ashley, 19, formed an unbreakable alliance. It was as if they became their own unit and I was just a spare part. Someone expected to keep the household afloat while they carried on with their lives. When I got the job offer from a major tech company in San Jose, I thought for the first time in years that things were finally looking up for me. It was everything I had worked for. $125,000 a year, stock options, and a future that no longer revolved around being a caretaker for a family that barely acknowledged my existence. But my mother had other plans. "Olivia, you can't take that job," she said, sitting on my bed with her arms crossed, holding the stuffed penguin Dad gave me when I was 16. "Ashley needs you. She's struggling in college. She has anxiety. You can't just abandon us like this." Abandon. That word stung. I had never abandoned anyone. I had spent years being the glue holding the family together. "Mom, I've spent my entire life putting this family first," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I can help from afar. I can send money once I'm settled, but I can't stay here forever. I need to live my own life." She shook her head, her face twisting into disappointment. "Your father would be ashamed of you." My breath caught in my throat. That was her trump card. She knew how much I idolized Dad, how much his approval, his memory meant to me. But using him against me was a new low. "Dad wanted me to follow my dreams," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "He wanted you to take care of this family," she snapped. I wanted to argue, but deep down, I knew there was no reasoning with her. The next morning, my laptop was missing. I searched the entire house, panic creeping up my spine. Tommy, my 10-year-old brother, tugged on my sleeve. "Ashley took it," he whispered. My stomach twisted. I stormed into Ashley's room without knocking. She was sitting on her bed, my laptop open in front of her, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded. She barely flinched. "Just making sure you don't make a mistake." I rushed forward, snatching the laptop from her hands. My email was open. The job offer was on the screen. A response had been typed out, declining the offer. My hands shook as I read the words. "You were going to reject my job offer?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Ashley crossed her arms. "Mom told me to. We're a family. Olivia, we need you here. Stop being so selfish." I laughed, but it was hollow. "Selfish? I've worked my ass off for years while you did nothing but shop and party. I've sacrificed everything for this family. And you call me selfish? You owe us," she hissed. "Mom sacrificed everything for you." "She didn't sacrifice anything," I shot back. "She stole Dad's money. She drained the college fund he left for me, for Tommy. And you," I pointed at her, sat back and let it happen. Her face paled. "Oh, you thought I wouldn't find out," I continued, my anger boiling over. "You thought I wouldn't notice the thousands of dollars Mom spent on your shopping sprees, your weekend trips, your goddamn spring break in Cancun?" She swallowed hard but said nothing. "I'm done," I said. "I'm leaving." As I turned toward the door, Mom was standing there, her expression unreadable. "If you walk out that door, you're dead to us," she said coldly. I hesitated for just a second. Then I kept walking. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My hands were shaking as I walked past my mother, past Ashley, past the years of expectations and guilt they had piled onto me. Tommy stood by the staircase, his small frame almost hidden behind the wooden railing. His eyes were wide, filled with something between fear and sadness. I stopped just long enough to kneel in front of him. "I'm sorry, buddy," I whispered. He shook his head quickly. "Don't be, just go." His voice was barely above a whisper. Then he reached into his pocket and pressed something into my hand. When I looked down, it was his favorite action figure, the one Dad gave him before he died. "For good luck," he said, blinking rapidly, trying not to cry. I squeezed his hand. Then I turned and walked out the door. Uncle James was already waiting by his car. He had come the moment I called, not even hesitating. He knew. He had known for a long time what was happening in that house. But like me, he had always been on the outside looking in. "You ready, Wurs?" he asked as I threw my suitcase into the trunk. I took one last look at the house. Then I nodded. Yeah. The drive to his place was quiet. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional soft indie rock playing from the radio. It reminded me of the drives I used to take with Dad. Those long, peaceful moments when it was just the two of us, talking about algorithms and constellations and all the things he wanted from me. But Dad was gone, and Mom had made it clear she didn't want me anymore. I stared out the window as the familiar streets blurred past. "You did the right thing," Uncle James finally said. I exhaled slowly. "It doesn't feel like it. It will." When we arrived at his house, I was still in a daze. He led me to the guest house behind his property, a small but cozy studio with a kitchenette, a bed, and a desk by the window. On that desk sat two monitors, neatly set up. "Thought you'd need a good workspace," he said with a small shrug. "Your dad would have wanted you to have the right setup." My chest tightened. I turned away before I could start crying. The next morning, as I unpacked, I found the old envelope Uncle James had given me. It was from Dad. Inside was a letter, one he had written for me to open when I turned 25. I wasn't 25 yet, but I needed to hear his words now. I unfolded the paper, my hands trembling. "Olivia, if you're reading this, it means you're at a crossroads. I don't know what challenges you're facing, but I do know this. I've always believed in you. I hope you have the courage to follow your dreams, even when others try to hold you back. I hope you remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself." I wiped my eyes. Then I turned on my laptop, pulled up my job offer, and hit accept. Mom called that night. I let it go to voicemail. The first few days in Uncle James's guest house felt surreal. The silence was unfamiliar, almost unsettling. No yelling from Mom, no Ashley stomping through the house, no forced responsibilities. For the first time in years, I wasn't expected to be the glue holding everything together. But freedom felt strange. I started my new job a week later. Stepping into that office, surrounded by people who actually respected me for my skills, felt like stepping into a completely different world. My manager greeted me with a warm smile, introduced me to the team, and told me how excited they were to have me on board. "Your technical interview was one of the best we've seen," she said, "especially that last algorithm challenge. You solved it in a way we hadn't expected. We were all impressed." I felt something tighten in my chest. Recognition. Appreciation. It was something I had never gotten at home. But even as I tried to focus on work, Mom's calls didn't stop. Voicemails, texts, emails. At first, they were guilt-laden. "How could you do this to your own family? Ashley is devastated. She cries every night. Your father would be ashamed of you." Then they turned into anger. "You are nothing without us. You think you're better than us just because you got a stupid tech job? If you ever come back, don't expect us to take you in." I blocked her number. But that didn't stop Ashley. She took to social media, posting long rants about how I had abandoned my family, how I had become arrogant and selfish after getting my degree. Her posts were dripping with fake sorrow, carefully crafted to make her look like the victim. I ignored her. But one night, as I was going through some documents Uncle James had given me, I found something that made my blood run cold. Bank statements. They showed the full extent of what Mom had done. She hadn't just drained my college fund. She had taken Tommy's too. The emergency fund Dad had set up? Gone. The money he had saved from working overtime, from taking extra shifts to make sure we had security? Stolen. I stared at the numbers, at the withdrawals, at the sheer amount of money that had vanished within months of Dad's death. My stomach churned. This wasn't just manipulation. This was fraud. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Uncle James walked into the room then, his expression dark. "We have a case," he said quietly. I swallowed hard. "A legal case?" "Yeah." I exhaled, shaking. I had spent my entire life letting Mom control me. dictate my choices, make me feel like I owed her my existence. But this was a line I couldn't ignore. "What do we do?" I asked. Uncle James pulled out his phone. "We start by talking to a lawyer." That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Tommy's action figure still clutched in my hand. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Dad. This was about Tommy. Mom had taken everything from us. It was time to take it back. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, paperwork, and late-night discussions with Uncle James. I learned more about financial fraud than I ever thought I would, digging through bank records, tracing where the money had gone, and every new discovery made me angrier. Mom hadn't just stolen from me and Tommy. She had done it systematically, transferring money into accounts under her name, using it for Ashley's endless luxuries. There were receipts for spa days, designer clothes, expensive electronics, even first-class plane tickets. "This wasn't desperation," Uncle James muttered one night as we combed through more records. "This was entitlement." The lawyer we hired was confident we had a case. Mom had forged documents, lied to the banks, and emptied funds she had no legal right to touch. And while I had once feared confronting her, now I wanted nothing more than to watch her face when she realized she wouldn't get away with it. Then, one morning it happened. A court summons was delivered to Mom's house. Within hours, my phone lit up with blocked numbers, unknown calls, and then, finally, one I recognized, Ashley. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened to it later, her voice was frantic, almost hysterical. "What the hell did you do? Olivia? Mom is freaking out, and now there are lawyers involved. Are you trying to destroy us?" Destroy them. That was rich, coming from her. The next call came from Mom herself. I didn't answer, but I did listen to the voicemail. "You ungrateful little brat. After everything I've done for you, you turn around and stab me in the back like this? Fine. You want a war? You've got one." I almost laughed. She still thought she had control, but for the first time in my life, she didn't. The court process moved faster than I expected. With Uncle James by my side, I watched as Mom tried to defend herself, tried to spin her lies into something justifiable. But the evidence was overwhelming. The bank statements, the forged documents, the testimonies. The moment the judge declared that she had committed financial fraud and would be forced to repay the stolen money, plus face potential criminal charges, I felt something inside me loosen. She had lost. Ashley sat beside her in the courtroom, pale and shaken. She had spent years enjoying the benefits of Mom's theft. But now that there were consequences, she looked like she wanted to disappear. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I had in years. But the best part came a week later, when the court officially granted custody of Tommy to Uncle James and me. I met Tommy at Uncle James's house that evening. He ran into my arms, holding on to me so tight I thought he'd never let go. "I knew you'd come back for me," he whispered. "Always," I promised. As for Mom, she tried to appeal, but her case was weak. The money was gone, and now she had nothing left. Not even the control she had once wielded so easily. Ashley? She tried to distance herself, claiming she had no idea what Mom had done. But her credit card statements told a different story. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had to sell most of her luxury items to cover legal fees. She moved in with a friend since Mom could no longer support her. I never reached out to her. She never reached out to me. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding. As for me, I kept moving forward. My job was going better than I could have hoped. Lisa took me under her wing, helping me grow in ways I hadn't expected. And Tommy, he thrived. He joined his school's robotics team, and every night, we worked on coding projects together, just like Dad would have wanted. Sometimes I still thought about Mom, about the house I grew up in, about the girl I used to be. But then I'd look at the life I had built, the peace I had found, and I knew I had made the right choice. Family wasn't about blood. It was about the people who stood by you, no matter what. Months passed and life slowly settled into something that felt real. Work was challenging, but fulfilling. Every day I built something new, learned something I never thought I could, surrounded by people who respected me, not for what I could sacrifice, but for what I could create. Tommy thrived in his new life. He wasn't the same quiet, cautious kid anymore. He laughed more. He asked more questions. He coded alongside me, his eyes bright with the same excitement Dad used to have. One evening, after a long day at work, I got a call from an unknown number. For a moment I hesitated, thinking it was Mom calling from yet another burner phone. But something inside me told me to pick up. Olivia? It was Ashley, but she didn't sound like the sister I remembered. She sounded tired. Hey, I said cautiously. There was silence for a long time. Then a shaky breath. I messed up, she admitted. I didn't realize how much until everything fell apart. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. Mom's been struggling, she continued. Without the money, without everything. She's not the same. She's been trying to find a way to fix things, but there's nothing left to fix. And me, I don't know how to take care of myself. I never had to. Her voice cracked, and for the first time in a long time, I heard something real in her. Not manipulation. Not entitlement. Just regret. I was awful to you, she whispered, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. If she had said this months ago, I might have laughed, hung up, walked away without a second thought. But things were different now. I won't pretend like it didn't hurt, I finally said, but I don't want to carry all that anger anymore. Not for you, not for Mom. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again, but if you're really trying to change, I hope you do. Another silence, then a soft, almost relieved exhale. Thanks, she murmured. Take care of yourself, Ashley. You too. After the call ended, I sat there for a long time staring at my phone. People could change. Maybe not all of them. Maybe not all the time. But Ashley had taken a step I never thought she would. Weeks later, I got another call, this time from Uncle James. Your mom is in therapy, he told me. Court mandated, but still, she's working through it. She's different. I didn't know if that meant much. I didn't know if she'd ever truly regret what she did, or if she'd ever see me as more than the daughter who disappointed her. But I knew one thing. I was free. Not just from her control, but from the resentment, the weight of everything she had done. I had built a life for myself that she could never take away. And for the first time, that was enough. People always say that family is forever. But I've learned that family isn't just who you're born to. It's who you choose to hold close. And sometimes it's who you choose to let go. If you were in my position, would you have given them another chance? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible, real-life stories.